The wait was the hardest part. 200 human warships floated in formation near Proxima Centauri, waiting for the enemy that would destroy them. Every crew member knew they were about to die. They had said goodbye to their families. They had written final letters. Now they simply waited. Admiral Tae-Yang watched the countdown clock on his display. 6 hours until the Velcrin fleet arrived. He walked through his flagship, talking to his crew, trying to give them courage he did not entirely feel himself. Remember, he told them, we are not here to win. We are here to learn. Every second of this battle will be recorded. Every weapon they fire, every tactic they use, every weakness they show. We die so that humanity can learn how to kill them. The crew nodded. They understood. This was not a battle. This was a sacrifice. Commander Sora sat in her fighter running final checks on her weapons. She led a squadron of 36 fighters, small and fast ships designed for quick strikes. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced ease, but her mind was far away. She thought about her daughter on Earth. 8 years old, with bright eyes and a love for drawing pictures of spaceships. Sora had promised to come home and take her to the museum. That was not going to happen now. Squadron leaders, report status. Tae-Yang's voice came through the comm system. Ghost Squadron ready, Sora replied. That was what they called themselves. Ghosts. Because they would all be dead soon. Engineer Daeho monitored his experimental weapons from the flagship's weapons bay. He had designed new kinetic harpoons, massive spears that could be fired at high speed to punch through enemy armor. They were untested in real combat. He had no idea if they would work. Sir, they are here, the tactical officer announced. On the main display, 10,000 red dots appeared. The Velcrin fleet had arrived at the edge of the system. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of warships so vast it seemed to blot out the stars themselves. Tae-Yang took a deep breath. All ships, battle stations, execute Protocol Hornet's Nest. Protocol Hornet's Nest was simple. Do not try to win. Just sting them as many times as possible before dying. Attack record data, retreat if possible. Attack again. Make them work for their victory. The Velcrin fleet advanced slowly, confidently. They had no reason to hurry. They outnumbered the humans 50-1. Captain Minho commanded the UHS Indomitable, humanity's largest dreadnought. It was 3 kilometers long, covered in armor and weapons. It was also hopelessly outmatched by the Velcrin ships, some of which were 10 kilometers long. All weapons, fire at will, Minho ordered. The Indomitable's railguns opened fire, launching tungsten slugs at a fraction of light speed. The slugs slammed into Velcrin shields, which flickered but held. The enemy returned fire with energy beams that cut through space like red knives. A human cruiser exploded, torn apart by a direct hit. Then another, and another. Commander Sora led her fighters in a diving attack on a Velcrin carrier. All fighters target their shield generators. Record everything. Transmit data continuously. The fighters screamed toward the massive enemy ship, dodging defensive fire. 3 fighters were destroyed in seconds. 5 more exploded as they got closer. But the survivors reached the carrier and fired their missiles at point-blank range. The missiles struck the shield generator, and Sora's onboard systems recorded the exact frequency of the shield energy. That data was immediately transmitted back to the human fleet. Got it, Sora said. All fighters break off. Only 9 of her 36 fighters survived to retreat, but they had the data. Engineer Daeho watched the shield frequency data come in. He quickly reprogrammed his kinetic harpoons to match that frequency. Captain Minho, fire harpoons now. The Indomitable launched 6 harpoons at the Velcrin carrier. The massive spears shot through space, and because they matched the shield frequency, passed right through the enemy shields. They punched into the carrier's hull, tearing massive holes in the armor. It was not enough to destroy the ship, but it was enough to hurt it. The carrier began venting atmosphere and debris. It worked, Daeho whispered in amazement. It actually worked, but there was no time to celebrate. The Velcrin fleet was not slowing down. For every ship humanity damaged, there were 10 more behind it. The battle raged for 14 hours. Human ships fought with desperate courage, attacking, recording data, and dying. The Velcrin advanced steadily, grinding through the human fleet with overwhelming firepower. Admiral Tae-Yang watched his ships die one by one. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates. Each one represented hundreds of lives. Each one was a loss humanity could not afford. Sir, we have lost 60% of the fleet, his tactical officer reported. Should we retreat? Taeyang shook his head. Not yet. We need more data. We need to understand their tactics completely. The Velcrin fought in rigid formations, never breaking pattern even when it was inefficient. Their ships were slow to turn. Their weapons were powerful, but took time to recharge between shots. Their shields were strong, but operated on fixed frequencies. All of this was being recorded and transmitted to secret human research stations in deep space. Captain Minho knew his ship was dying. The Indomitable had taken dozens of hits. Half the crew was dead. The engines were failing, but he still had one weapon left. All remaining crew, evacuate to the escape pods, Minho ordered. I am staying. His officers protested, but Minho was firm. He sent them away, then turned his dying ship toward the largest Velcrin command carrier in the fleet. Admiral Taeyang, this is Minho. I am going to buy you some time. Take care of my family. Taeyang understood immediately. Godspeed, Captain. Minho pushed the Indomitable's engines to maximum, burning out the reactors for one final burst of speed. The massive dreadnought accelerated toward the Velcrin command carrier like a 3-kilometer battering ram. The Velcrin tried to shoot it down, but the Indomitable's armor was too thick. The distance closed rapidly. 1 kilometer. 500 meters. 100 meters. The collision was catastrophic. The Indomitable slammed into the command carrier at tremendous speed, punching completely through its hull. Both ships exploded in a fireball that could be seen from across the system. The Velcrin fleet hesitated for the first time. Their command ship was gone. Dozens of their officers were dead. Admiral Taeyang saw the opening. All ships retreat now. Jump to emergency coordinates. The surviving human ships activated their faster-than-light drives and jumped away, leaving the battlefield behind. Of the 200 ships that started the battle, only 40 survived. The Battle of Proxima Gate was over. Humanity had lost, but they had achieved their goal. Every second of the battle had been recorded. Every Velcrin tactic, every weapon frequency, every tactical pattern, the data was safely transmitted to hidden research facilities. On Velcros Prime, the Velcrin homeworld, Overlord Thexlar received the battle report. His fleet had won decisively. The human fleet was shattered. The path to Earth was open. Excellent, Thexlar said. Begin the advance to their core systems. Destroy every colony along the way. Show them what happens to species that resist the Dominion. His officers saluted and left to carry out his orders. Thexlar looked at the casualty report. 43 Velcrin ships damaged. 1 command carrier destroyed. Less than 1% of his total fleet. The humans had fought bravely, he admitted. They had some clever tricks, but in the end, they were crushed as expected. The outcome was never in doubt. As Thexlar celebrated his victory, he did not notice something important. The humans had not fought to win. They had fought to learn. And humanity was very good at learning from mistakes. On Earth, in a secret military facility, Dr. Hana and Engineer Deho began analyzing the battle data. They had 14 hours of detailed combat information. They knew exactly how Velcrin weapons worked. They knew how their shields operated. They knew their tactical patterns. This is incredible, Hana said, reviewing the data. Their technology is advanced, but it has not changed in centuries. They use the same tactics over and over because they always win. Deho nodded slowly. They're like a giant that has never been punched in the face. They don't know how to adapt because they never needed to. But we do, Hana said. We adapt or die. That's been humanity's way since the beginning. They worked through the night, finding weaknesses and designing countermeasures. The Velcrin had won the battle, but they had also taught humanity exactly how to kill them. 18 months after the Battle of Proxima Gate, the human fleet arrived at Velcros Prime. The journey had been long and bloody. Dozens of battles had been fought. Hundreds of Velcrin worlds had fallen. But now, finally, they had reached the heart of the enemy empire. Admiral Taeyang stood on the bridge of the Retribution, staring at the planet below. Velcros Prime was beautiful, covered in purple oceans and green continents. Billions of Velcrin lived there, going about their lives, unaware that extinction was orbiting above them. The last defense fleet of the Velcrin Dominion stood between humanity and the planet. 1,000 ships, all that remained of the once mighty armada that had come to destroy Earth. They were outnumbered 3-1. Sir, "We are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," the communications officer said. "It is Overlord Thexelar." "Put it on screen," Taeyang ordered. The holographic display flickered to life. Overlord Thexelar appeared, and Taeyang was shocked by what he saw. The proud Velcrin commander looked old and broken. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes were filled with fear. "Admiral Taeyang," Thexelar said, his voice shaking, "I am calling to beg for mercy. We were wrong to attack your species. We were arrogant. Please spare my people. They are not warriors. They are civilians, families, children." Taeyang felt nothing looking at him. No satisfaction, no pity, just emptiness. "You did not call to beg when you came to wipe us out," Taeyang said. "You did not care about our families when you glassed our colonies. Why should I care about yours?" Thexler's face crumpled. "Because you are better than us. You must be, or you would not have won. Please, I am begging you." Taeyang ended the transmission without another word. In the command meeting that followed, the human leadership debated what to do. The room was filled with generals, admirals, and civilian leaders. Everyone had an opinion. General Yuna spoke first. "We should destroy them completely. Every ship, every military installation, make it impossible for them to ever threaten anyone again." "And the civilians?" asked Dr. Hana. "There are 8 billion Velcrin on that planet. Most of them never wanted this war." "Their government declared genocide on us," Yuna replied coldly. "They cheered when our colonies burned. Now they get to face the consequences." "If we commit genocide, we become exactly what they are," Hana argued. "We prove that humanity is no better than the species that tried to destroy us." Commander Sora sat silently, listening. She thought about her squadron members who had died at Proxima Gate. She thought about her daughter growing up without her mother. Part of her wanted the Velcrin to suffer as she had suffered. But another part, the part that remembered why she had become a soldier, hesitated. Jiwan spoke up. "My daughter died in the culling. She was 6 years old. She loved painting and telling silly stories. The Velcrin killed her without a thought." She paused, her voice breaking. "I have dreamed of revenge for 18 months. But killing Velcrin children will not bring my daughter back. It will just create more dead children." The room fell silent. Admiral Taeyang looked around at his officers. These were people who had sacrificed everything to get here. They had earned the right to decide the fate of the enemy. "Dr. Bora, what does your analysis suggest?" Taeyang asked. Dr. Bora pulled up data on her tablet. "The Velcrin Empire is broken. Even if we spare them, it will take centuries for them to rebuild. They are no longer a threat." "That is not good enough," General Yuna said. "They were not a threat to anyone before they attacked us either. Then they decided we needed to die. What stops them from doing this again in 200 years? "We do," Taeyang said quietly. "We occupy their space. We control their military capability. We make sure they never have the chance to hurt anyone again." "And if they rebel?" Yuna challenged. "Then we deal with it. But we do not commit genocide just because we are afraid of what might happen." The debate continued for hours. Finally, Taeyang called for a vote. The decision would be made democratically, as humanity believed all important decisions should be. The vote was close, but the decision was clear. The Velcrin would live, but they would live under human terms. Admiral Taeyang gave the order to attack the Velcrin defense fleet. The battle was brutal but one-sided. Humanity's technological advantage was overwhelming. The new weapons, the faster ships, the superior tactics, everything the humans had learned in 18 months of war came together. The Velcrin fought bravely, trying to defend their homeworld, but they were outmatched. 3 hours after the battle began, the last Velcrin warship was destroyed. Commander Sora led the final attack run, her Wraith interceptors overwhelming the enemy flagship. As she watched it explode, she felt no joy, just exhaustion. "It is over," she said into the comm. With the defense fleet gone, Velcro's prime was defenseless. Human ships moved into orbit. Weapons trained on the surface. Admiral Taeyang sent a transmission to the planet. "This is Admiral Taeyang of the human fleet. Your military has been destroyed. You have 2 options. Surrender completely and accept our terms or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide." The wait was agonizing. 60 minutes while billions of lives hung in the balance. With 30 seconds left, the Velcrin government responded. "We surrender, completely, unconditionally." The terms of surrender were harsh. The Velcrin were forbidden from having any military force beyond local police. They could not leave their star system for 100 years. All of their shipyards were destroyed. Their weapons technology was confiscated. Human forces occupied key positions throughout Velcrin space. The mighty dominion that had ruled 300 star systems for 5,000 years was reduced to a single system. Dr. Hana led a team down to the planet's surface to establish contact with civilian leaders. She found a population in shock, unable to process what had happened. "You were supposed to be weak," a Velcrin historian told her. "We destroyed 23 species before you. Why could we not destroy you?" Hana thought about it. "Because we learn fast, we adapt. Every time you knocked us down, we got back up smarter and stronger. Your empire was built on being better than everyone else. Ours was built on becoming better than we were yesterday. The occupation was difficult. Many Velcrin resented human control. Some formed resistance groups. But humanity dealt with them firmly. After attempting genocide, the Velcrin had lost the right to self-determination. General Yuna wanted to be harsher, to eliminate all potential threats. But Admiral Tae Yang overruled her. "We won the war," he said. "Now we have to win the peace. That means showing them a better way, not just crushing them forever." Years passed. The occupation continued. Slowly, relationships began to form. Young Velcrin learned from human teachers. Human scientists worked with Velcrin researchers on peaceful projects. It was not forgiveness. It was not friendship. But it was a start. Admiral Tae Yang ordered the construction of a memorial on Velcros Prime. It listed every human who had died in the war, including the 400,000 from Proxima Gate. But it also listed every Velcrin who had died. "We remember all the dead," the inscription read. "So we never forget the cost of war." 50 years after the war ended, Pilot Quan was an old man. He taught at a joint military academy where human and Velcrin cadets trained together. It was strange to see former enemies working side by side. One of his students was a young Velcrin named Thexfor, grandson of the late Overlord Thexelar. "Why do you teach us?" Thexfor asked one day. "After what we did to your people?" Quan thought about his answer carefully. "Because the war is over. Killing each other did not solve anything. It just created more widows and orphans. Now we try something different. We try to understand each other." "Do you hate us?" the young Velcrin asked. "I used to," Quan admitted. "I lost friends in the war. But hate is exhausting, and it does not bring anyone back." Dr. Bora's granddaughter worked on a joint research project with Velcrin scientists. They were developing new propulsion technology that would allow ships to travel faster than ever before. "My grandmother helped defeat your empire," she told her Velcrin colleagues. "Now I work with you to build something better." That is progress. The Velcrin were slowly adapting to their new reality. Some still dreamed of their lost empire. But the younger generation was different. They had grown up knowing only human oversight. To them, the old dominion was just history. A Velcrin historian wrote a book about the war. It was called The Price of Arrogance: How the Dominion Fell. The book was brutally honest about Velcrin failures. It examined how an ancient empire had become so arrogant that it could not imagine losing. How they had dismissed humanity as weak, right up until humans were burning their worlds. The final chapter was titled, "Why They Spared Us." It concluded, "They could have erased us. By all rights, they should have. We tried to exterminate them after all. But they chose mercy instead. Not because we deserved it, but because they were better than us. That is the hardest truth to accept. We thought we were the superior species. We were wrong." On Earth, in a quiet retirement home, Admiral Tae Yang spent his final years in peace. He was 97 years old, his body failing, but his mind still sharp. He received a message one day from Velcros Prime. It was from Thexfor, the young Velcrin he had never met, but whose grandfather he had defeated. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Proxima Gate. 6 months of humanity running and hiding. 6 months of watching Velcrin ships glass their colonies one by one, turning thriving worlds into lifeless rocks. The outer colonies were gone. 15 worlds destroyed, their populations dead or scattered. The Velcrin advanced slowly, methodically, taking their time. They were in no hurry. They had already won, or so they believed. But in the core systems, in secret facilities hidden in asteroid belts and deep space, humanity was changing. The data from Proxima Gate had given them everything they needed. Now they were building something new. General Yuna stood in a massive underground facility on Mars. watching weapons being assembled on factory floors that stretched as far as the eye could see. She was 63 years old, tough as steel, and had spent her entire life preparing for wars that might never come. Now that war was here. She was ready. "How many missiles do we have?" she asked Engineer Deho, who stood beside her. 50,000 Hellfire missiles ready for deployment. Deho replied. "Another 100,000 will be ready in 2 months." The Hellfire missiles were Deho's masterpiece. Small, fast, and smart. Each one carried an AI chip that could analyze enemy shields in real time and adjust its frequency to pass right through. They learned from each other, sharing data in microseconds. Where the Velcrin had power, humanity had intelligence. "Good," Una said. "What about the ships?" "The first batch of Wraith interceptors is complete. 3,000 of them. The Wraith interceptors were nothing like humanity's old warships. They were small, fast, and could turn on a dime. They sacrificed armor for speed, weapons for maneuverability. A single Wraith could not hurt a Velcrin battleship, but 100 Wraiths attacking from all directions could tear it apart." Down in the research labs, Dr. Hanna was working on something different. She had spent months studying Velcrin biology, looking for weaknesses. What she found was surprising. The Velcrin nervous system operated on specific electromagnetic frequencies. Their brains used these frequencies to communicate with their bodies. If you disrupted those frequencies, you could shut down a Velcrin completely. Hanna had designed a weapon that emitted a pulse of electromagnetic energy tuned to exactly match Velcrin neural frequencies. It would not kill them immediately, but it would paralyze them, leaving them helpless. "We can call it the neural disruptor," Hanna explained to General Una. "Install them on our missiles and ships. When they hit Velcrin vessels, the crew will be incapacitated. The ships will be helpless." Una smiled, a cold smile that did not reach her eyes. "Perfect. Anything else?" "Yes," Hanna said quietly. "We found their homeworld. Velcros Prime. Hyun tracked it down through intercepted communications." Una's smile grew wider. "Excellent work, Doctor." In another part of the facility, Dr. Bora worked with teams of programmers to create the most sophisticated AI system humanity had ever built. It was designed for one purpose: to predict Velcrin fleet movements. The Velcrin were rigid in their tactics. They followed ancient military doctrines that had not changed in thousands of years. They always attacked in the same formations, always used the same strategies. To them, these tactics were perfection. Why change what had always worked? But to an AI system that could analyze patterns, they were predictable. Dr. Bora's AI could predict Velcrin movements with 94% accuracy. "We will know where they are going before they do," Bora explained. "We can set ambushes. We can attack their supply lines. We can be everywhere they do not expect us." Meanwhile, in space, Jiwon, the cargo captain, had become something else entirely. She had turned her freighter into a warship, mounting whatever weapons she could find. Hundreds of other civilian ship captains had done the same. They formed irregular militias, hitting Velcrin supply convoys and running away before reinforcements arrived. They were not part of the official military, but they were causing problems. Jiwon had also volunteered for a dangerous mission. She piloted a stealth ship into Velcrin-occupied territory, dropping reconnaissance drones in 50 different systems. The drones were tiny, almost impossible to detect, and they sent back constant data on Velcrin fleet positions. On one of these missions, Jiwon's stealth ship was nearly detected. A Velcrin patrol came within 10 kilometers of her position. She shut down all systems, floating dead in space, barely breathing as the enemy ships passed by. When they were gone, she activated her engines and ran. Her heart was pounding, but she was grinning. "Not today," she whispered. Pilot Kwan was testing the new Wraith interceptors. He was 28 years old, one of the best pilots humanity had, and he loved the new ships. "It handles like a dream," Kwan reported over the comm. "I can pull turns that would have torn apart our old fighters. The Velcrin targeting systems are too slow to track this." He put the Wraith through a series of extreme maneuvers, flipping and spinning in ways that should have been impossible. The G-forces were intense, but the ship's inertial dampeners kept him alive. "These ships are going to change everything," Kwan said. Admiral Taeyang visited the facility to inspect the new weapons. He had survived Proxima Gate but had been haunted by the loss ever since. 400,000 dead, so many good people gone. He walked through the factory floors, watching missiles being assembled, Ships being built, soldiers being trained. Everything was different now. Humanity had learned from its defeat. How long until we are ready? Taeyang asked General Yuna. 2 weeks, Yuna replied. We have enough weapons for a major strike. We can hit 30 Velcrin positions simultaneously. And you think we can win? Yuna nodded. We are not the same species that fought at Proxima Gate. We learned from them. We adapted. Now we are going to show them what that means. Taeyang thought about it. Part of him wanted revenge for all the dead. Part of him just wanted the war to end. But another part, the soldier part, wanted to see if their new weapons actually worked. Then let us do it, he said. Launch Operation Reversal. The plan was bold and risky. Humanity would strike 30 different Velcrin positions at the same time, using their new weapons and tactics. They would hit hard and fast, then retreat before the enemy could respond. Dr. Bora's AI had identified the targets: supply depots, repair stations, isolated battle groups. Places where the Velcrin felt safe, where they would not expect an attack. Commander Sora, who had survived Proxima Gate with only 9 of her squadron, now commanded an entire wing of Wraith interceptors. 200 ships under her control. She had trained them personally, teaching them the same aggressive tactics she had used. Remember, she told her pilots before the mission, we are not trying to be honorable. We are trying to win. Hit them where it hurts and get out alive. The human fleet assembled in secret, scattered across a dozen systems. When the time came, they would all jump to their targets simultaneously. On Velcros Prime, Overlord Thexelar was growing frustrated. The human resistance was taking longer than expected. Their colonies were destroyed, yes, but scattered groups kept attacking his supply lines. It was annoying. Send 3 more battle groups to patrol the supply routes, he ordered. Eliminate these pests, his tactical officer hesitated. Sir, if we spread our forces too thin, we leave gaps in our coverage. The humans are broken, Thexelar said dismissively. They are no threat. These are just desperate survivors making noise. The tactical officer bowed and left to carry out the orders. Thexelar turned to look at his holographic map. Most of human space was now under Velcrin control. Only the core systems remained, and they were heavily defended. It would take time to grind through those defenses. But time was something the Velcrin had plenty of. He did not know that in just 2 weeks, everything would change. Admiral Taeyang stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Retribution. It was smaller than his old ship, but faster and more advanced. It carried the new weapons, the new systems, everything humanity had built in 6 months of desperate effort. Around him, captains and crews prepared for battle. They were nervous but determined. They had run long enough. They had bled enough. Now it was time to hit back. Taeyang addressed the entire fleet over the comm system. His voice was calm but filled with steel. 6 months ago, they tried to end us in a single battle. They failed. We survived and we learned. Today we show them what that means. Today we stop running. Today humanity strikes back. All ships prepare to jump. Operation Reversal begins now. The Velcrin fortress world of Kelthonis had stood for 3,000 years. It was a military stronghold, protected by massive defensive platforms and shielded by energy barriers that could stop any attack. 500 Velcrin warships orbited the planet, ready to destroy any threat. The Velcrin garrison commander felt perfectly safe. His sensors showed nothing unusual. The system was quiet. Then humanity arrived. 300 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They did not slow down. They did not announce themselves. They simply attacked. The first wave was Hellfire missiles, thousands of them, launched from every human ship simultaneously. They streaked through space like a swarm of angry hornets, each one adjusting its frequency to match the Velcrin shields. The Velcrin defensive platforms tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. The missiles passed through the shields as if they were not there and slammed into the platforms. Explosions bloomed across the defensive grid. Within minutes, Kelthonis' supposedly impenetrable defenses were in ruins. Impossible, the garrison commander whispered. How did they do that? He did not have time to find an answer. Commander Sora's Wraith interceptors came next, diving through the debris field at speeds the Velcrin tracking systems could not follow. They fired precision strikes at the shield generators protecting the orbiting ships. One by one, the generators exploded. The Velcrin ships suddenly found themselves vulnerable. Admiral Tai Yang watched from the Retribution's bridge. All capital ships, target the enemy cruisers, fire neural disruptor missiles. The new missiles launched, each one carrying Dr. Hana's electromagnetic pulse weapon. They struck the Velcrin ships and detonated, sending waves of energy through the enemy hulls. Inside the Velcrin ships, the crews collapsed. The electromagnetic pulse disrupted their nervous systems, leaving them paralyzed and in agony. Captains fell from their command chairs. Gunners slumped over their weapons. Engineers collapsed at their stations. The mighty Velcrin warships drifted helplessly, their crews incapacitated. "Target disabled ships," Tai Yang ordered. "Finish them." Human railguns opened fire, punching through armor that was no longer protected by shields. One Velcrin battleship exploded, then another, then 5 more. The Battle of Kelthonis lasted 3 hours. When it was over, all 500 Velcrin ships were destroyed or captured. Humanity had not lost a single vessel. The victory was repeated across 30 systems simultaneously. Human forces struck everywhere at once, guided by Dr. Bora's AI predictions. They hit supply depots, repair stations, isolated patrol groups. Every target was carefully chosen. The Velcrin found themselves fighting a completely different enemy than the one they had crushed at Proxima Gate. These humans were fast, smart, and utterly ruthless. They appeared without warning, destroyed everything in sight, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Overlord Thexelar received the reports in disbelief. 30 positions attacked, over 2,000 ships destroyed, Kelthonis fallen. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They were beaten. They were running." His tactical officer pulled up the analysis. "Sir, they have developed new weapons. Their missiles can penetrate our shields. Their small ships are too fast for our targeting systems, and they seem to know where our forces are at all times." Thexler stared at the map. Red marks indicated Velcrin losses across dozens of systems. It looked like his empire was bleeding. "Send reinforcements to all threatened positions," he ordered. "Double the patrols. I want these humans found and destroyed." But doubling the patrols meant spreading the fleet thinner. And Dr. Bora's AI immediately noticed the pattern. She predicted where the reinforcements would go and set ambushes accordingly. The Velcrin walked into trap after trap. Jiwan and her civilian militia played a crucial role. They knew the asteroid fields and nebulae better than anyone. They led Velcrin ships into ambush zones where human warships waited. In one battle, Jiwan's militia lured a Velcrin patrol into a dense asteroid field. The heavy Velcrin cruisers had trouble maneuvering between the rocks. Human Wraith interceptors used the asteroids as cover, popping out to fire missiles before disappearing again. The Velcrin ships tried to retreat, but Jiwan had mined the exit route. When they tried to leave, the mines detonated, crippling their engines. The human interceptors finished them off. "That is for my daughter," Jiwan whispered as the last Velcrin ship exploded. Pilot Quan had become an ace, shooting down 50 Velcrin fighters in various battles. He flew his Wraith like it was an extension of his body, pulling maneuvers that seemed impossible. In one engagement, Quan found himself alone against 12 Velcrin fighters. The smart move would have been to run. Instead, he dove straight at them. The Velcrin fighters fired, but Quan was already gone, spinning away and coming at them from a different angle. He fired a burst from his weapons, destroying one fighter. Then he looped around and got another. The Velcrin pilots were skilled, but they had trained against enemies who moved predictably. Quan moved like chaos itself, never where they expected him to be. When reinforcements arrived, Quan had destroyed 7 of the 12 fighters. The rest retreated in confusion. The war was turning, and everyone could feel it. Humanity was no longer the prey. They had become the hunters. General Yuna escalated the campaign. "Phase 2 begins now," she announced. "We stop hitting military targets only. We go after their infrastructure, their shipyards, their supply networks, everything that keeps their war machine running." Some officers protested. "That means civilian casualties, Velcrin workers, families." Yuna's face was hard. "They tried to genocide us. They destroyed 15 of our colonies, killing billions. Now we show them the consequences." Admiral Tai Yang was uncomfortable with the order but did not argue. War had made them all harder. Human forces struck deep into Velcrin territory. They destroyed shipyards that had been building warships for thousands of years. They targeted supply stations, leaving Velcrin fleets stranded without fuel or ammunition. The Velcrin economy began to crumble. Without their shipyards, they could not replace losses. Without supply stations, their fleets could not operate at full capacity. Overlord Thexelar called for negotiations. He sent a message to Earth, offering a ceasefire. Admiral Taeyang received the message on his flagship. He read it twice, then deleted it without responding. "Sir, should we not consider their offer?" His communications officer asked. "They did not offer to negotiate when they came to exterminate us," Taeyang said coldly. "Why should we show them mercy now?" The campaign continued. Human forces liberated occupied colonies, freeing survivors who had been hiding from Velcrin patrols. But the liberation came with a dark edge. Any Velcrin caught on human worlds were killed without trial. Commander Sora led a strike on a Velcrin occupation force on a human mining colony. Her forces surrounded the Velcrin garrison and called for their surrender. The Velcrin commander refused, expecting prisoner exchange or negotiation. Sora's forces attacked with neural disruptors, incapacitating the entire garrison. Then they executed every Velcrin soldier. "No prisoners," Sora said. "They would not have spared us." The galaxy watched in horror as humanity transformed from victim to aggressor. Other species that had stayed neutral began to worry. If humanity could do this to the mighty Velcrin Dominion, what could they do to anyone who crossed them? On Velcro's prime, panic was setting in. The Velcrin had never lost a war. They had never even come close. Now they were being systematically dismantled by a species they had dismissed as insignificant. Overlord Thexelar sent another message to Earth, this time pleading for talks. Again, Admiral Taeyang ignored it. The Velcrin military began recalling all forces back to their core systems. They abandoned the outer territories, giving up conquered worlds just to consolidate their defenses. But it was too late. The momentum had shifted completely. Dr. Bora's AI predicted the Velcrin would concentrate their remaining forces around 3 key systems. General Yuna prepared massive strike forces to attack all 3 simultaneously. "We end this war soon," Yuna told her commanders. One way or another. Admiral Taeyang looked at the strategic map. The path to Velcro's prime was opening. Soon they would take the war to the Velcrin homeworld itself. He thought about all the dead from Proxima Gate, all the colonies that were destroyed, all the billions who died because the Velcrin thought humanity was weak. "They tried to erase us," he said quietly. "Now we will show them what it means to awaken a sleeping giant." The stars belonged to the Velcrin Dominion, or so they believed. For 5,000 years, their empire had stretched across 300 star systems. Their ships were the largest ever built. Their weapons could crack planets in half. When they looked at other species, they saw only insects to be crushed or ignored. Humanity was neither crushed nor ignored anymore. In the year 2847, humans had spread to 47 star systems. They built cities on distant worlds. They mined asteroids and terraformed moons. They were young, ambitious, and growing fast. Too fast for the Velcrin's comfort. Admiral Taeyang stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewport. He was 50 years old, with gray hair at his temples and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years in space, protecting human colonies from pirates and small threats. Nothing had prepared him for this. The holographic display flickered to life in front of him. Hyun appeared, her face pale and worried. She was an intelligence officer stationed on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Her job was to intercept alien communications and decode them. "Admiral, we have confirmed it," Hyun said. Her voice shook slightly. "The Velcrin are coming." "All of them." Taeyang felt his stomach drop. "How many ships?" 10,000 warships, sir. Maybe more. They're calling it the culling. They plan to hit all 47 of our colonies at the same time. They want to wipe us out in a single day." The bridge went silent. 10,000 ships. Humanity had only 200 capital ships in total. The math was simple and terrifying. "When?" Taeyang asked. 3 weeks. They're gathering at the edge of Velcrin space right now. Taeyang closed his eyes. 3 weeks to prepare for extinction. Across the solar system, on a research station called Galileo 7, Dr. Hana was studying Velcrin biology. She had been a scientist for 20 years, specializing in alien life forms. The Velcrin had always fascinated her because they were so different from humans. They had 4 arms, scales instead of skin, and eyes that could see in infrared. When the news of the culling reached her station, Hana immediately dove into her research with new urgency. She pulled up every file she had on Velcrin history. What she found made her blood run cold. The Velcrin had done this before. 23 times to be exact. 23 other species had been completely destroyed by the Dominion. Some had been wiped out for expanding too fast, others for refusing to submit. A few were destroyed simply because the Velcrin found them annoying. Hana sent her findings to Earth's government immediately. Humanity was not special. They were just the next species on a very long list. In the outer colonies, a cargo freighter drifted through the darkness of space. Its captain, Jiwan, was hauling mining equipment to a colony on the edge of human territory. She was 42, had short black hair, and had been flying cargo ships since she was 20. Her radar picked up something strange. Ships. Lots of them. They were not human ships. Jiwan changed course to get a better look. What she saw made her hands shake on the controls. Dozens of massive warships, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever built. They were dark gray, covered in weapons, and moving in perfect formation. One of the ships noticed her freighter. A beam of red light shot out and struck a nearby moon. The entire moon exploded into dust and debris. Jiwan did not wait to see more. She pushed her engines to maximum and ran. Behind her, the Velcrin ships continued their advance. They did not chase her. She was not worth their time. When Jiwan reached the nearest human station, she showed them the footage from her ship's cameras. The station commander immediately forwarded it to Earth. Within hours, every human in the galaxy knew what was coming. On Earth, the United Government held emergency meetings day and night. Representatives from every colony argued about what to do. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to run and hide in deep space. A few brave souls wanted to fight. Admiral Tae Yang was called to Earth to present a military strategy. He stood before the council, feeling the weight of billions of lives on his shoulders. "We cannot win," he said simply. "They have 50 ships for every one of ours. Their weapons are more powerful. Their shields are stronger. If we meet them in open battle, we will be destroyed in hours." "Then what do you suggest?" asked the Earth president. "That we surrender?" "No," Tae Yang said. "We fight anyway. We make them bleed for every inch. We delay them long enough to evacuate civilians from the outer colonies. We gather data on their weapons and tactics, and we make them remember that humanity does not die quietly." The council voted. Earth's entire fleet would gather at Proxima Centauri, humanity's first interstellar colony. They would make their stand there. It would not be enough to win, but it might be enough to hurt the enemy and buy time. Tae Yang returned to his ship with orders to prepare for battle. He knew most of his fleet would not survive. He knew he probably would not survive. But he also knew that sometimes survival was not the point. Sometimes you fought just to prove you could. Dr. Hana continued her research, looking for any weakness in Velcrin biology. Engineer Deho, a weapons designer on Mars, worked day and night creating new missiles and bombs. Commander Sora, a fighter pilot, trained her squadron for suicide runs against enemy capital ships. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone prepared in their own way. In Velcrin space, Overlord Thexler watched the preparations with amusement. He was the supreme commander of the Velcrin military, a massive creature with deep purple scales and cold, calculating eyes. He had overseen the destruction of 6 species in his lifetime. Humanity would be the 7th. "They are gathering at Proxima Centauri," his tactical officer reported. "All of their ships in one location." Thexlar laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Perfect. We will crush them all at once. Send the entire fleet. This will be over before the weekends." His officers bowed and left to carry out his orders. Thexler turned to look at a holographic map of human space. Soon all those little dots representing human colonies would go dark. Soon humanity would be just another footnote in Velcrin history books. He had done this so many times before. It was always the same. The young species would fight back with primitive weapons full of courage and determination. Then they would die, and the galaxy would forget they ever existed. Thexlar had no doubt that humanity would follow the same pattern. How could they not? They were young, weak, and vastly outnumbered. The outcome was already decided. What Thexelar did not understand was that humanity was different in one crucial way. Humans learned fast. They adapted. They remembered. And they never ever forgave. The Velcrin fleet began its journey toward human space. 10,000 ships moving as one, ready to deliver extinction. They expected an easy victory. They expected humanity to break and scatter. They were wrong.